Episode 1, The Paparazzi and the Cage. The stars sparkled under the night sky, matching the flickering billboards below them. The streets shone in colors of red, blue, green, and yellow, illuminating those high buildings and crowded streets. Long Island, New York, a bustling western city known for its wealthy and sophisticated way of life. It was a city where anyone would love to blend in because of its splendor, glamour, and most importantly, its dazzling secrets. Evelyn Peddle was ready to unravel every single one of them. They see themselves as reporters, those who constantly provide the latest news and buzz about Long Island's celebrities. However, others referred to them as the paparazzi, a word used for a group everyone wanted nothing to do with. As she stood behind the tree under the night sky, Evelyn's phone rang several times. She gritted her teeth and answered the phone. "Hello, Evelyn," a voice echoed from the other end of the line. "Where are you off to now? Do you think the company pays you to be absent all the time?" Of course, it had to be him, of all people. Her skin had gone numb, and her voice lowered into a whisper. "Boss, you know that I've been doing this task for around 3 weeks now," she sighed. "I swear, I'm on the trail of something big. Trust me." "Something big, huh? Fine. I'll wait for this big news of yours. But if it doesn't show up, you're done for." Before she could reply, he had already hung up. Her forehead creased in frustration. No matter how fancy their lives appeared to be, it truly wasn't easy. Evelyn tapped her foot onto the pavement, waiting for him. Harvey Cage. He was her target. Well, he wasn't really her target only. This man is the most powerful man in Long Island. Being the CEO of Cage Group, he was also damn hot. These attributes were enough to make countless ladies crush over Long Island's Prince Charming. However, to a small reporter like her, the gossip was 1 in a million. Not only was he in the news, but also the woman he was having an affair with. The only reason Evelyn was stalking him was because of the latest scoop she just had. It seemed that the cold and belligerent damsel of the entertainment industry was having an affair with the CEO of Cage Group himself. If they were really together, then it meant that their entire relationship was like a bomb, ready to explode. It was the reason why she had followed them around, willing to sabotage her career. Otherwise, if her bosses were to know about this, they wouldn't have delegated the task to her. But she was determined to stand out. Competition, after all, was everywhere. Everyone wanted to report the next major headline. Everyone wanted to rise up the ranks. With all the limited scoops they had, she wasn't going to let this opportunity slip past her fingertips. "God, when is he coming out?" Evelyn murmured to herself. Although she was a rookie, Evelyn was also pretty smart, and she knows her capabilities. If the 5-star hotel were to discover her identity as one of the reporters, they wouldn't be letting her in. That's why she had the perfect disguise. She wore the hotel's uniform and even got her name tag on it. A Bugatti Veyron sports car parked right outside the entrance. Suddenly, a beautiful pair stepped right out of the back seat. All the staff marveled at their presence. There they are! Evelyn bowed her head and quickly followed them inside. Everything seemed to be going according to her plan. While she could have easily taken the pictures from far away, she wanted more solid evidence, not some silhouettes standing in the night. After all, if she wanted to be the best, then her photos must be undeniably true. Taking a deep breath, she followed them up to the presidential suite on the top floor. There, she leaned against one of the columns and took a deep breath. Her fingers trembled as she handled the camera in her hands. This was it. All she needed was to see them kiss and she'll get her shot. Having no clue of her presence, they naturally opened the door as if they were part of some dramatic television series. As soon as they saw they were alone, Isabella Fox wrapped her arms around Harvey's neck and pulled him into a deep, passionate kiss. Yes! Evelyn almost jumped out of her hiding place. It was really happening! As she was taking the picture, her lips spread into a wide smile. She even had to cover her mouth to stop herself from bursting into laughter. This time, she's positive that she'd get that promotion. All the marketing firms would surely guarantee her a spot in their company. She wouldn't even need to worry whether or not she'd get the seat in 3 months. Fuck, this really was it. She lowered her camera and averted her gaze. Now that she was done here, it was time to leave. It wouldn't be wise for her to linger around here, especially if she valued her life. However, before she could even step towards the elevator, a strong and powerful hand gripped her shoulder. Another hand suddenly covered her mouth, and she found herself being pulled back up against the wall. A strong fragrance fell on her like a landslide. Hey, what's happening? Evelyn struggled as she waved her feet up in the air, but it was to no avail. No matter the resistance she had, the grip around her wrists only tightened even more. Immediately after, the door creaked wide open, and she felt her back slamming against the floor. She exhaled in pain as her eyes squinted shut. The absence of light wasn't really helping her splitting headache either. What was happening? You're pretty bold, aren't you? A deep male voice echoed across the room, and her body immediately broke out in shivers. Who was that guy? Just then, the lights were turned on. The piercing stream of light blinded her, that she had to close her eyes from the suddenness of it all. Evelyn shook her head and rubbed her eyes, wanting to get a clear look of who had kidnapped her. However, when she saw who it was, her heart stopped. Oh, she's screwed. In front of her was the most beautiful couple in the world. Isabella Fox, one of the biggest stars of the entertainment industry, now stared at her with total disgust laced across her face. Standing beside her was none other than Harvey, the same man she had just filmed a few minutes ago. Even if they were dressed casually, they looked as if they were ready to storm the Paris fashion runway. She looked like a piece of crap compared to the both of them. Her nails dug into her palms, but now wasn't the time to feel ashamed. Instead, she tugged at her clothes and smiled awkwardly. It's not like she was dressed like an outsider. After all, she was wearing the uniform, so she might as well act the part. Sir, miss, she said formally, is there anything I can help you with? Isabella immediately saw through her act. She sneered. Really? You're still pretending? Miss, what are you talking about? Evelyn acted ignorantly as she furrowed her eyebrows. I don't understand. Well, if you two don't want anything, I'll just head out and take my dinner break, if you'll excuse me. Even in this dangerous situation, you still managed to lie. Harvey finally spoke. His eyes were narrowed. If you're planning to lie, then you should be smooth with it. For example, the numbers in your uniform are missing, and your work card, nowhere to be found. Her cheeks flushed bright red. How the hell was he this observant? Hell no, there was no way she was going to screw this up. Sir, you're quite an observant man, aren't you? I don't have any number because I'm still a temporary worker, a contracted one to this hotel. You're still going to lie? You good-for-nothing brat! Isabella swung her hand at Evelyn. Do you know this hotel's under Cage's group? He'll know whether or not they've hired a temporary worker. Now don't waste our time and hand the film over. Evelyn was shaking in her boots now. Oh, God, why are rich people so secretive anyway? Evelyn suppressed the urge to sigh in disbelief. How was she supposed to know this was one of his properties? It's like she's some mouse who had stupidly entered the lion's cage. Taking a deep breath, she took the camera out of her bag. Look, here's my camera. I'll even drop the news. Just let me go, she pleaded. You think I'm after that? Isabella didn't even bother taking the camera as she grabbed onto her small bag. Hey! She was just about to grab her when the man pulled her back. He was very strong, and Evelyn couldn't fight against him at all. She could helplessly watch as the movie star pulled the film from the corners of her bag. It seems you have plenty of tricks up your sleeve, she snarked. Without wasting a second, Isabella threw the film into the glass of wine. No! Her hard work, her tip, her promotion, they're all gone. Her heart trembled, but she kept herself together. That didn't matter anymore. The only thing she needed was to get the hell out of here. If she stayed any longer, there might even be more trouble at this point. Her lips thinned. You've already destroyed the film. Now let me go. Let her go? Isabella's gaze swept over her frail frame, and the corners of her lips twitched in disgust. After everything that had happened, the last thing she wanted was to let her go. In fact, she wanted to torture this bitch to the ground. However, this was the only night she could hook up with Harvey. After countless days of waiting, she wasn't going to let anyone ruin her night. But still, Isabella pondered on how best to deal with Evelyn. Isabella gave a gentle smile and immediately leaned over towards Harvey. "Hey, Daddy Cage," she said comfortingly. "This picture has already been destroyed, so why don't we let her go? After all, we shouldn't let her spoil our mood. I'm sure she wouldn't say a damn thing." "You can go now," he said casually. "You heard him, right?" The movie star cocked up an eyebrow. "Harvey asked you to go. Now hurry your ass up and leave." Evelyn heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that she was safe, for now. While she didn't get the next big news, she was getting out of here alive. That was the only thing that mattered. "Thank you," she murmured, about to leave the room. However, just as she stepped towards the exit, she felt a large hand gripping her shoulders. What the heck? Her frown deepened as she glanced up at the man. Harvey wasn't looking at her anymore, but at Isabella. "You can go now," he repeated. Harvey, baby!" Isabella furrowed her eyebrows. "Are you not asking her to go?" "Go. Don't make me say it again." His voice had already lowered, and his eyes had turned freezing cold. Anyone who was caught under his stare would probably be running for the hills. Everyone fell silent, and the atmosphere had become awkward. Isabella felt her chest constricting. She wanted to say something, anything, but not a single word came out of her lips. Her coldness, after all, was just a disguise. In reality, she wanted to cling to him like a koala, but everyone knew that you shouldn't piss anyone off in this city. You can never tell whose nerves you are getting on. If she really wanted to not make him angry, then she must do as he had instructed. That meant she needed to leave. "All right, Harvey, I guess we'll see you some other time," she said, nodding obediently. However, before she could step out of the room, she made sure to give Evelyn a ruthless glare. The skanky bitch was the reason her night was ruined. If she hadn't been there in the first place, maybe she would have actually had him all to herself for the night. She's gonna pay for this. "I'll be going now," she called out one last time before leaving. As soon as the door closed behind her, the atmosphere lightened up almost entirely, but it still didn't make matters any better. Evelyn stiffened. Episode 2. The Punishment. Harvey was still holding her shoulders down. No matter how many times she tried to casually shrug his hand back, it seemed that only encouraged him to tighten his grip. Her heart raced in her chest. What was he trying to do? Not only did he chase away his one-night stand, but he also forced her to stay. Was he going to torture her here? Fuck no. She needed to find a way to escape as fast as possible. "Mr. Cage," she said slowly, plastering a smile on her face, "I really do apologize for forcing this on you. It's just, you know how it is working in this field. I offended you, I know, but just please let me go. I promise you won't be on the front page." "I've seen you before," Harvey simply said as he carried her over his shoulders and threw her onto the sofa. Without another word, he sat down on the other end, like a model ready for his first pictorial. As soon as her back hit the cushions, Evelyn clutched one of the pillows like a shield. She stuttered, "but we haven't seen each other before this. I think you must be mistaken. It wasn't like they met each other before anyway." "You've been following me for almost half a month." He cocked up an eyebrow. "Stalking me to the ends of the earth, and you're saying you haven't met me before?" "What?" Her heart skipped a beat. He knew? Actually, she didn't want to do any of this in the first place. She wanted to get stuck with some low-level action star or some sort. But if she needed this promotion, then Harvey was the only way she could get it. She bit her lower lip in embarrassment. "Look, to tell you the truth, I'm actually aiming for Isabella, not you," she defended herself. "Besides, once I take the pictures, I'll even blur your face out. No one would know." "Do you think I care about exposing myself?" He frowned. "Having an affair with another woman already sounds like a shady exposé." The words slipped past her lips before she could stop herself, and she immediately shut her mouth. Her cheeks flushed. "What I mean to say is, this is your private life. I just spoke too much." His eyes glinted. It was half a month ago when Harvey spotted her figure tailing around his shadow. After all, she wasn't really the best reporter he had ever met in the field. Even if it was raining, he'd still see her right at the back with her camera in her fingertips. A part of him wanted to see how far she was going to go, what exactly she'd get just by stalking him. Now it seemed that she just wanted to test his patience. She'd get a piece of him. For someone who can't stand watching me sleep with another woman, makes me wonder what you're going to do when you've experienced the very act. There was something about his voice that was so smooth and velvety, yet so sharp and icy at the same time. Evelyn froze, feeling her insides turning into stone. What the hell did he mean? She tensed. Look, I already handed the film back to you, right? She tried to convince him once more. I promise, really promise this time that you wouldn't see me ever again. Hell, I won't even write anything about you. Just please, let me go. She was just one of the reporters out there. He was a billionaire in his own right. Why would he go through all the hassle just to torture her, right? His dark gaze, however, said otherwise. Under the tense atmosphere, his lips parted. What he said was definitely something she didn't expect to hear. You seem to be missing the point, Miss Petal. I'm not just some angel that could forgive whatever you've done, he said softly. If you have done something wrong, then it's only your right to pay the price. Look, my family isn't that rich. Just please think things through. Her heart was already jumping up and down from all the stress coursing through her veins. Her gaze fell on the door at the side. She had been part of the track and field team when she was in high school. If she ran fast enough, then he wouldn't be able to catch her, right? Moreover, he seems to be insanely drunk to chase her down. It was dangerous, but it was better than doing nothing. You got this, Evelyn. She cheered herself on as she jumped out of the couch and jolted towards the door. She was fast, but it seemed that it wasn't enough. As soon as her hands drifted across the handle, an arm circled around her waist and pulled her back. She looked up to see that it was none other than Harvey. Do you really think you can run away from me? He sneered. I don't have any money. Please, let me go. Her legs kicked up against the thin air as she struggled under his grip, but she still couldn't break free from his hold. Harvey was way taller than her. He was also quite huge, given his surprisingly strong grip. No matter how many times her fists slammed against his suit, he still wouldn't give in. Let me go! Let me go! He didn't say anything as he marched her into the presidential suite. A strong, fragrant smell drifted all around her. The lights were quite dim, revealing a large, smooth bed sitting in the corner of the room. There were rose petals scattered across the floor, giving off an ambiguous mood. Harvey threw her onto the bed. Evelyn immediately backed away as her back hit the wall. Why did you bring me here? She demanded, her voice trembling in fear. I'm warning you, I'm not someone you can mess with. This man had brought her into the bedroom. Does that mean he wanted to have sex with her? I know what you're thinking. Harvey stared at her for a long time as he calmly took off his suit jacket. The silky fabric fell onto the rug as he began to unbutton his collar, revealing his muscular chest. He tilted his head and narrowed his eyes at the young woman. And I suppose you're right. Your figure may not be the best I've seen, but I guess I shouldn't be that picky, should I? His lips twisted into a mocking smile. After all, I gotta change my taste from time to time. I guess that's what makes it exciting. Evelyn wasn't surprised. Her jaw clenched as a series of curses slipped out of her like a machine gun. You wretch! She yelled. Pervert! Rapist! She resisted him with all the strength she had. Guess I gotta teach you a lesson first. His eyes glinted with an emotion that couldn't be read as he grabbed a hold of her chin, forcing her into a kiss. Ugh! Before she knew what was happening, she already felt him on her, slipping his tongue into her mouth. There was something so intimate about his actions, something that she hadn't expected. Harvey tasted the sweetness of her lips, admiring the softness of her tender skin. There was no hint of softness in his actions. After all, he wasn't trying to be gentle tonight. As he kissed her deeper and passionately, her eyes suddenly widened at his actions. It was as if something in her mind had snapped, and her body immediately started shaking under his grip. However, there wasn't anything Evelyn could do. The more she struggled, the more Harvey got the chance to inch a bit closer and closer, till they were millimeters apart. A masculine scent wafted across her, and she suddenly found it difficult to breathe. What was happening? Evelyn wanted to use her tongue to pry the man's lips away, but it was only happily welcomed as he entangled his with hers like they were in some type of game. She shivered under his grip, her cheeks flushed. It was the first time she had ever experienced this feeling. After much struggle, she finally ended the kiss and tilted her head back, gasping for air. Her lips were swollen cherry red from the kiss, and her eyes were glazed over. Harvey took a step back to admire his actions. There was something about the way she panted that turned him on. The corners of his lips inched up into a smirk.
Guess this is way more satisfying.
He stared at her for a long time, as if she were a painting put up on display. There was no denying the fact that Harvey was extremely handsome. His angular face looked like it was carved by a god, revealing his high cheekbones and curved nose. Even the little details, like the curve of his lips and his slanted eyes, made him even more gorgeous. Any angle would do justice to this man's look. However, just because he's good-looking doesn't mean he could do anything he wanted. With all his gorgeousness, he should find someone who was actually interested in him. He didn't need to force someone who wasn't. Evelyn forced herself to take a deep breath, and she squeezed her eyes shut. It took her a few seconds to regain herself before she said, "Look, Mr. Cage, we both know that you aren't interested in me. In Long Island, you can have any woman you want, so there's no need to force me. You already said I wasn't pretty anyway. Why don't you just find other sexy models?" Harvey narrowed his eyes and he moved closer to her.
"You're right,"
he said softly, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear.
"I can get any woman I want, but I want you tonight."
Her heart skipped a beat. A wave of electric current immediately washed over her, and she could feel her entire body go numb with the suddenness of his words. There was just something about him and his drunk, husky voice that drew her in. No. Evelyn blinked and turned away, feeling her cheeks warm in an instant. What the hell was wrong with her? How could such an erotic thought run through her mind at this time? She wasn't some love-struck fool. No way. "Just let me go. I swear I wouldn't say anything about this," she stuttered. However, before she could say anything more, she felt a pair of hot hands running up and down her waist. The warmth spread all over her like a fire that couldn't stop, and she stared up at him, not really knowing what to say. What are you doing?"
"I already said I want you tonight, so I will," he said arrogantly. "Instead of struggling, you might as well enjoy your time with me."
"Enjoy? Do you know what this is? Rape! If you don't stop, then I'm gonna call the cops."
"Report it, but it takes a long time before a crime like this gets proven."
As he was speaking, he pressed one of the buttons at the side of the bed. 2 ropes fell from the headboard, and he fastened them on her arms. Evelyn's expression changed. Her eyes became teary as her bottom lip trembled. It was really happening. "Harvey!" she yelled. "Let me go, you bastard! Will a celebrity like you rape a helpless girl? Don't you have any shame?"
"You're making a hell of a noise,"
he frowned. She screamed and shouted at him, cursing his name out. But it was useless. Was there really nothing she could do? Just because he was rich, should everything really go by his rules? Evelyn initially considered herself as an outsider, that she didn't want to be a part of the luxury and lifestyle of this world. She had told herself that this was the only time she'd ever succumb to the big leads, but it seemed that it had only led to her punishment. Will the scar of this punishment ever heal, or is Evelyn destined to wear it as a mark of shame for the rest of her life? Will it break Evelyn into a million pieces and throw her into an abyss of gloom, or make her a strong person? Under the lustful gaze of Harvey, Evelyn shuddered while a million questions crowded her mind. Answers to none she knew. Episode 3. A Few Tricks Up Her Sleeve. Harvey knew everything, yet he acted as if he knew nothing. Because of this, he had played her into his grasp. Harvey caressed her waist, and she trembled beneath him. She didn't know whether she was shaking because she was afraid or because she was excited. Even he didn't know. Evelyn struggled until her strength gradually faded away. Her arms were already strained, and her legs fell limp on the mattress. His fingers slid across her, playing her like a fiddle, but her mind had already gone blank from surprise, shock, and even pleasure. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she found it impossible to turn away.
"Don't cry,"
he murmured. However, she didn't bother listening to him. Her vision had become blurry, and all she could do was stare at the ceiling blankly. She had even forgotten to ask how this man knew her name. Evelyn didn't know how long she had been with him, but by the time he had finally stood up, she was really exhausted. He, however, looked completely fine. Placing his bathrobe over his shoulders, he leaned against the bedpost.
"Do you want to take a shower?"
he asked softly. He no longer appeared as the most intimidating man in the city. Instead, he sounded like her lover, as his whispers were filled with appreciation and life. Her lips thinned. This girl truly is stubborn. The corners of his lips quirked up.
"How about you get some rest?" he suggested. "I'm going to have a bath first."
She didn't even bother saying anything when he went to the bathroom. Evelyn laid on the bed as she looked around the room in silence. It was as if the world she knew was already 1,000 miles away from her. Tonight, she had sex for the first time. It was everything Evelyn would have cherished so much. However, all she felt was a dry sense of indifference. Could it be because it wasn't with the right person? Evelyn remembered wanting to experience her first sex with someone she thought was special, but he never loved her back. His face was a blurry picture at the back of her mind. Her eyes squeezed shut. She had wanted to forget him, wanted to erase him from her existence, but it seemed that the mere thought of removing him was impossible. Evelyn had no other option but to resign herself to this bleak fate. Evelyn understood that love didn't last forever. Of course, this wasn't some off-the-hill fairy tale. A part of her knew that all of these were mere wishes, that she'd be able to move on and live with the life she already had. She didn't want to think of the man in her memories. After all, he was already someone else's husband, never hers to begin with. Her hands clenched. Perhaps it was because of her feelings for that man that she felt indifferent to what had happened to her now. Or maybe it was because Harvey's touch felt like 1,000 butterflies across her skin. It became obvious that humans weren't any different from passionate animals. Her mind had gone blank as her fingernails trailed across the satin sheets. He was a charming man, that was for sure. But it still didn't mean that he should get away with his actions. Evelyn lay in bed for a while before finally gathering the momentum to get up. The last thing she needed was to think of everything that had happened to her. All she wanted was some peace and quiet. When Harvey came out, he saw her sitting on the edge of the bed with a white blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The corners of his lips inched up into a smile as he brushed her hair.
"Are you okay?"
he asked.
"Do you want to take a bath?"
Her face still remained as cold as ever. "You know I recorded you, right? When you tied me to the bed and raped me. Do you really think I was not going to expose the matter and have you removed from your position?" Although her voice was hoarse, there was a certain firmness tied to it.
"Of course not,"
he responded quickly, staring at her with narrowed eyes. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and took a sip.
"After all, I am known to hide it very well. Even if they were raped, they knew nothing could be done about it. So they took my money and let it go."
She stiffened. "So you're saying there are other victims?" Harvey stared at her for a long time before he took a step forward. Setting the glass down on the bedside table, he used his fingertips to grab both sides of her chin.
"You really are gullible, aren't you?"
he snorted, drawing away.
"With so many tricks up your sleeve, you are still naive."
Evelyn turned away. "I don't know what you're talking about."
"Do you really want to use the recording as evidence? Well, that's too bad."
Before she could figure out what was happening, he forcefully snatched her phone from his fingertips.
"Guess we're gonna have to destroy it."
"Give it back! Give it back!" However, despite her protests, he pulled the phone out of her reach and deleted all the recordings she had of him. He kept a straight face. While he looked fulfilled, she appeared the exact opposite. Devastated. Her face had morphed into a scowl, and her eyes watered.
"Do you really think I'll sit here and take that? I'll sue you. I'll fucking sue you. You're nothing but a reporter."
He snorted.
"Even if you claim to be raped, who's gonna believe you? You'll look like some clout-chasing girl wishing she was my woman.
The only reason I even trailed you was to gather enough evidence. You think I'd want to be your girlfriend? Her chest heaved up and down, and her cheeks flushed in anger. Who the hell did this guy think he was?
Haven't you forgotten?
He raised an eyebrow as if bored by the chit-chat.
Whatever I say goes.
Her heart pounded in her chest. At this point in time, she didn't even know what to say. There was a reason why the wealthy ones were out of reach. They could do anything they wanted with just a wave of their bills, and no one had a choice but to play by their rules. Even 10 of her wouldn't be able to fight him off. What the hell was the use of justice when she couldn't even practice it? The world was as cruel as many had said. The only thing she could do now was to endure all of this and get out as soon as she could. As the thoughts streamed at the back of her mind, a piece of paper landed on her lap. Evelyn narrowed her eyes only to see that it was a check. Her eyes widened. 700,000. It was $700,000. But what do you mean by this? She finally raised her head. Her eyes, if possible, had become even darker. Are you trying to pay me off and cover the disgusting act you just pulled? Is that it? Was he trying to be generous?
I don't want to take advantage of you and leave you with nothing. That's $700,000.
He nodded at the check.
You don't have to do this kind of work anymore. You can go somewhere else. Start a new life.
Start a new life? Her fingernails dug into her palms. If she took the money now, then she'd be no different from a hoe. Did he really think that lowly of her? Without thinking further, she tore the check right in front of him. To hell with your money, she snapped. I may be poor, but I can't be bought. You got that? What do you think of me, some low-life scum?
No, I gave you the money because...
Because what? You think we can be bought easily? Evelyn sneered. She didn't even think twice as she grabbed a couple of bills from her bag and threw it at him. Then how about this? Here's the money for screwing me. Her heart was practically raging with anger. Harvey was a powerful man, and she couldn't fight him. She understood that. Not only was she raped, but he had also offended her in just one night. However, she certainly wasn't going to back down without a fight. This was just going to be another night. A night where she got unimaginatively drunk and lost her virginity. That was the only way she could move past this. While he was powerful, she was egoistic. Her gaze fell on the torn check at her feet. The amount would have given her a good life, but she believed in a life she'd actually feel proud of. Maybe she could have gotten a job she liked and lived in the house she wanted. Her struggles couldn't be understood by someone from a wealthy background. Why would they? If they had everything they could have ever wanted the minute they were born. However, she had her dignity to protect. Harvey stared at the $10 bills sprawled over the ground. They looked like scraps of paper, and he clenched his fists. Did this woman think she could buy him? Normally, this wouldn't have bothered him, but this was different. The only reason why he had given her that check tonight wasn't because he slept with her like other countless women. It was a feeling that he couldn't describe. He actually wanted her to live a better life, and now for her to tear it apart was totally insulting. The light in his eyes dimmed.
The money you're paying is way too little if your intentions are to buy me out,
he snarled. Evelyn froze. She simply lowered her head, not wanting to look him in the eye. You're the one who humiliated me first, she snapped. I only want you to feel what I felt. Not wanting to say anything more, she grabbed her shoes and hurriedly walked to the front door. A sore feeling emerged from her hips, but she really didn't give a damn at this point. All she wanted was to get the hell out of here.
Do you know that as long as you're in Long Island, you won't be able to escape me?
He tilted his head.
I still have 10 other million ways to torture you.
Hearing this, the first thought that came to Evelyn's mind was that of her brother, the only family she had. Was she putting her brother in danger because of her pride? To what extent could this man go to assert his will? To torture her? To punish her? Was this a threat or a warning? A chill ran down her spine as she stared at him in disgust. Episode 4. Finally Arrested. Being one of the richest men in the country, Harvey practically owned Long Island. As a matter of fact, some may even refer to him as their boss. No one would dare challenge him, not even the mayor. Who the hell was she to even think of going against him? To him, she was just an irrelevant piece of crap. The hairs rose at the back of her neck as Evelyn struggled to stay calm. Gosh, what the hell was she thinking?
You're the one who got on my nerves, yet you still want to leave me hanging,
he said snidely, taking another step forward.
You only want to destroy yourself. You should know that.
Her face turned ugly. What the heck do you want? Just as he was about to say something, there was a knock on the door. The waiter's voice echoed from the other side of the room.
Mr. Cage, pardon me for intruding, but I just want to notify you that the police are patrolling the perimeter. We're sorry for any disturbance they'd make.
A burst of hope exploded in her chest. The police are outside, she warned. I'll tell them about what you've done. His lips curled into an imperceptible smile.
You want to take this as a chance to escape?
Cocking up an eyebrow, he motioned to the door.
Fine, try it out. Let's see if they're going to believe you or me.
Would they believe her? Her heart raced in her chest. It was probably impossible. No matter what she thought of it, she just couldn't do it. Besides, she knew the entertainment industry after being in the business for years. She knew plenty of things about the men and women she had reported on, so she shouldn't be naive to think that they'd believe her over him. After all, the man standing in front of her was the type of man who would have ladies falling head over heels for him. Who'd believe someone like her? Not only that, but he even had concrete evidence that she had been stalking him for more than 2 weeks. If she were to report to the police, then they'd just assume she was doing things on purpose. Her fingernails dug deeper into her palm. She didn't need to be a genius to figure out that she was done for. Closing her eyes, she didn't have to do anything but to swallow her anger and accept her fate. Fighting someone as reputable as Harvey wouldn't end well for her. She still had a brother to worry about. If she caused any trouble and lost her job, they're both finished. When she finally opened her eyes, the glint in them had long since disappeared. Fine, you win, she stated. Her voice had already dulled into monotone. As long as you pretend nothing happened and let me go, I won't say anything and continue with my life. Do we have a deal? She was the one who brought this mess on herself in the first place. His lips curved into a threatening smile. There was something about him that would make any woman step back and any man crouch in fear. Yet she couldn't be bothered.
Now, why would I allow this to slide?
He asked mockingly.
Besides, we're not even done here yet.
She froze. What do you mean? What are you going to do? What else did he want from her?
If you hadn't thrown your scraps of paper at me, I would have forgiven you. But now...
His eyes glinted.
You're pretty courageous, I'll give you that. So, why don't I give you something you wouldn't forget?
Just then, he opened the door. Although he was only wearing a bathrobe, he didn't look the slightest bit embarrassed. Evelyn, however, ducked her head. The policeman immediately saluted.
Mr. Cage, we're sorry for any disturbance we've caused,
one of them said as he stood in attention.
There's been an order by the authorities to patrol the hotel. Don't worry, we won't be checking your room.
He widened the door.
That's fine. You're only doing your job.
The uniformed men didn't go in. However, they did peer through the door, only to see a young woman ducking behind him.
It seems we interrupted your night with your girlfriend, one of them said. We won't disturb you. Oh, that won't be a problem, because this lady isn't my girlfriend.
Evelyn froze. What was he trying to do? The policeman frowned.
Is there anything I can help you with?
Despite her resistance, Harvey tugged her by the arm and pushed her towards the cops.
This lady decided to make an illegal deal with me,
he stated.
Get her out of here and teach her a lesson.
Her hands were shaking. What nonsense was this? She paled, not knowing what to say. She waved her hands up in the air. He raped me! He was the one who—
Come with us.
They didn't even listen to her words as they dragged her out of the room. Harvey! She roared, struggling under their hold. I hope you die, you bastard! You raped me! He fucking raped me! Harvey simply waved his hand at Evelyn's roaring figure as if she were just another girl on the street. Once she disappeared, he turned around and closed the door behind him, sweeping the money off the bed. There was a faint lavender scent on the bed, and he closed his eyes in appreciation. There was just something more peaceful about this night than any nights he spent here. Even his anger had long since dissipated. It was obviously time to punish this woman. After all, who even asked her to misinterpret his good intentions? He only offered to give her a better life. After all, looking at her body, he could tell she wasn't in the best of shapes over the years. What was she even eating? Her body was so thin that he could feel the bones sticking out of her skin. Was she malnourished? Yet there was something so delicate about her skin. How did she even maintain that appearance? He murmured to himself, twisting and turning on his bed. Something stirred in his stomach, but he couldn't tell what it was. Glancing up, he let his hand graze over the $10 bills right beside him. A thought flashed in his mind, and he immediately flicked it away. No, there was no way he was going to be thinking about her tonight. She deserved what she got. That was all he needed to say. Tonight was the end. As soon as his eyes closed, Harvey didn't think of anything else. Evelyn, however, wanted to cry her eyes out. No matter how many times her fingers tapped against the hard wood, she couldn't find it in herself to drown the voice in his mind. Her body was still trembling from the aftermath. She didn't expect that she'd be brought to the police station to make a statement. Fuck! Despite this, she still didn't give up. I never seduced him. He was the one who forced me, she protested at the female officer. Slamming her hands onto the table, she leaned in just a little bit closer. Why won't you believe me? After 5 hours in the station, her voice had already become hoarse, and her gaze had become hollow. In the end, she didn't even know whether or not silence would benefit her more. It had never occurred to her that she'd be locked up in a cell like this. Her hands clenched. The female officer gazed at Evelyn's pale face. At first, she was harsh in interrogating her, but after seeing how stubborn she was, a part of her believed the young woman. Suppressing a sigh, she looked away. I'm going to be honest. There have been many girls like you who came here to issue a statement. But you know how things are in this world. He's the richest guy in the city. Even if you want to press charges, who's going to believe you? The officer shook her head. Look, I'd suggest you live with it and have someone bail you out. I'm sure he's only punishing. If someone bails you out, you can get a good night's sleep. What do you say? That was it? Her jaw clenched in disbelief. Was there nothing they could do? And who was she going to call to bail her out? Evelyn's parents were already dead, and the only family she had left was her little brother. Even then, he still wasn't old enough to bail her out. Plus, she didn't want him to find out. The only friend she had was out of the States, and God knows when she's coming back. If she calls her chief editor, then they'll immediately fire her right on the spot. She'd even be the subject of their gossip. Then who else? Oh, a thought finally occurred to her. Bill Rogers. Their relationship was quite good. In fact, he was the one who constantly asked her out in the past. Although she made her intentions not to date him very clear, he still continued being her friend. A part of her couldn't help but think that he'd actually be a good choice. Her hands trembled in her sides. She didn't really want to call him, but at this point, she really had no other choice. All she needed was to ask him for a favor and explain it to him once she was released. After all, he had always been very attentive to her. Maybe he really was the right person for her. Perhaps his deep love was enough for her to forget the man haunting her past. All right, here goes nothing. Evelyn grabbed the phone from the desk and dialed his number. Her cheeks were still flushed from embarrassment and anger. What the hell did she do to deserve this? It was already midnight when she called, she noticed. At this point, she didn't even know if Bill was awake. Her fingers drummed against the back of her seat as she looked around. After all, he had no obligation to talk to her. They weren't even together. Fortunately, the call was picked up. What's wrong? Bill's hoarse voice sounded from the other end of the line. Why are you calling so late? Right. She took a deep breath before explaining. I'm at the police station right now. I'm sorry for calling you so late. It's just that I don't really have anyone else, and... What happened? Are you okay? She could hear the bed creaking at the other end, and his voice was much clearer now. Staring helplessly at the wall, Evelyn suppressed her tears. It's really not convenient for me to talk right now. Can we talk about it later? She stuttered. But if you can't make it, I understand. If only the ground could swallow her up now. There was a short pause when he said, I'll be over in 5. As soon as he hung up the phone, Bill jumped out of his bed and put on his clothes. Beside him, the blanket wriggled and a beautiful woman came up to grab his arm.
What's wrong, babe? She said seductively. It's still midnight, and you're already leaving?
Evelyn is in trouble. I need to go get her.
The woman rolled her eyes in jealousy. Crossing her arms over her chest, she scoffed.
Ugh, that bitch is really annoying. I swear every time you speak about her, you're always so nervous, she snapped. You don't even give a damn about me when we're in bed together. Tell me, do you really care about her? Didn't she reject you?
We've already talked about this, remember?
He slowly leaned into her hold, wrapping his arms around her waist.
She's the woman I wanted to marry. And you, I thought I've already made it clear that we'll only be sleeping together.
I agreed to sleeping together, but that doesn't mean I don't want you to like me, she huffed. You're the one who doesn't want me. How about this? Why don't I pretend to be your Evelyn?
You don't have to. Besides, I'm sure she'll compromise sooner or later. It's going to be better for her anyway.
He left his room in a hurry with thoughts of Evelyn languishing in a cell, pestering him. He wanted to rush to the police station and be the savior of the girl he had always desired. Would it be the night when the girl he had been after for so many years finally accepts him? Would Bill's warmth heal some of her wounds? Or did fate have some other plans reserved for her? Episode 5. A Stranger's Good Intentions. Bill left that night with his head held up high. However, he couldn't help but furrow his eyebrows in worry at the thought of his girl getting hurt. It was only when he came to pick her up at the station did his facial expression change for the worse. The sky was already hazy and bright when they stepped out of the police station. They walked down the roadside, with her staring at the South Park Central and him glaring at the pavement. There was a long silence before she finally spoke.
Thank you for coming. How about I treat you to some dinner some other time, as a token of my appreciation?
As soon as he heard her words, he stopped and turned around. His eyes were narrowed as an unreadable expression flashed across his face.
Aren't you going to explain what happened?
Evelyn chewed her bottom lip as her cheeks flushed in embarrassment. There was a time when he'd find this act adorable, but now he found it annoying.
She took a deep breath. There was an accident during work.
An accident? Bill burst into laughter. Definitely an accident, he mocked. The only accident you got there was that you got caught. Pity you weren't able to take any money.
Her eyes widened. How could he say something like this?
Look, you're not even listening to me, she said through gritted teeth. I know you helped me, and I appreciate you for that. But that doesn't mean you have to accuse me of accuse you. I just picked you up from a police station. God, back then I thought you were on another level, clean, pure, which is why I made so much effort, you know? Damn, you should have told me how easy you are. Maybe then I would have just given you the money and spent the night with you.
The more he spoke, the louder his voice became. Just as he was about to continue, Evelyn landed a hot slap on his face.
Don't spout nonsense when you don't even know the truth, she yelled. Do you really think I'm that kind of person? God, you're much worse than I thought. His cheeks ached as he grabbed a hold of her arm.
It seems I finally see you for who you are too, he said snidely. If I had known this was the real you, I wouldn't come running to save you. I might as well just stay in bed with Elise. At least she's not going to cheat on me.
Bill shook her away, and Evelyn collapsed on the ground. Her knees hit the pavement, and sharp pain spread around her ankle. Fuck, she breathed out. You bastard! She clutched her ankle as she stared at the man's retreating figure. He didn't even look back. Evelyn didn't know how long she sat on the ground before she stood up and stumbled to a bench. The wooden seats welcomed her warmth as she leaned back against the surface. The sky brightened and the winds became cooler. Caressing her shoulders, Evelyn stared up at the sky as crystal tears slid down her cheeks. She sniffled. Why was life so unfair? Why were they treating her like this? Bill said that he was deeply in love with her. Now that she trusted him as a loyal friend, he revealed his true identity and humiliated her. She shivered. He didn't even know anything. If he was truly such a caring man, then he wouldn't be sleeping with Elise.
She also used to be friends with her, having gone out and eating with him before. Evelyn still remembered how cold he acted around her, and how he said that he didn't like her around them. It seemed that he only pretended and didn't mean a word he said. He was asking her out while sleeping with other women, and he even had the guts to insult her like that. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. So many thoughts ran through her mind as sadness clutched at her heart. What was wrong with her? She felt that, despite the size of this world, she didn't have anyone she could rely on. There was so much unfairness in this world, and all of it she had to deal with overnight. The sky gradually brightened, but Evelyn sat there not feeling anything. When the first ray of sunlight came, a car stopped at a building entrance. "Mayor, I will send you in," the driver told the man who got out of the car. "You can stop here. I want to walk in." He refused the driver's good intentions of sending him to the police station. The mayor of Long Island City, Luke Bigman, planned to take a walk on this road full of Norway maples. Early in the morning, the weather was still suitable for a walk. Mayor Bigman was dressed in a well-ironed black suit and was walking down the street lined with maple trees. His tall and straight figure was as graceful as a painting. He checked the time. He was here to deliver something to his friend, but it was still early. At this time, the street was empty. Deep in his thoughts, after he walked a few blocks down, Mayor Bigman saw someone sitting on a bench. Evelyn sat with her head lowered and her shoulders moved from time to time. Why was she sitting here crying so early in the morning? Mayor Bigman couldn't help looking at Evelyn. He was getting closer and closer, but she kept her head down and didn't notice anyone passing by. Mayor Bigman considered it for a while, but he couldn't control his habit of meddling in other people's business. He paused and took out a handkerchief from his pocket. "Are you okay? Do you want to wipe your tears?" A gentle and calm voice came from above. Evelyn raised her teary eyes and blinked at him. Mayor Bigman had a gentle smile on his face, trying his best to show his friendliness. Evelyn looked at his smiling face and was momentarily stunned. A strange man's kind smile and the handkerchief he handed her were like a spring breeze brushing past her heart. Evelyn was stunned for a second before taking the handkerchief. She said in a low voice, "Thank you." After Evelyn wiped her tears, she felt very embarrassed. Even a stranger couldn't bear to watch her like this. She quickly stuffed the handkerchief back into Mayor Bigman's hands. She stood up and lowered her head. "I'm fine. I'm leaving." Evelyn was just about to leave, but felt a sharp pain in her ankle. She lost balance and fell to the side. "Be careful." Mayor Bigman quickly reached out his hand and caught her. Evelyn fell into his arms. Evelyn was short and thin. When Mayor Bigman caught her, he couldn't even feel the weight of her body. This feeling of holding a girl who was as light as a feather made Mayor Bigman feel a little strange. She was like a soft kitten. Mayor Bigman did not dare hug her. He was afraid that he would hurt her if he used a little strength. Mayor Bigman leaned over and asked carefully, "Are you okay?" Evelyn was held in his strong arms. She was very scared. She quickly broke free and jumped on one leg to support herself to the bench. Her face turned red from embarrassment. Evelyn pressed on the bench and whispered, "I'm fine. Thank you." This man was a stranger that Evelyn had just met. He first saw her cry and then handed her a handkerchief. Then he saved her from falling. She was already too embarrassed. Mayor Bigman noticed her swollen ankle. He frowned. "Your ankle is very swollen. Are you injured? Let me help you and take a look." Mayor Bigman put the briefcase aside and squatted down to hold her ankle. Evelyn was nervous and embarrassed. She pulled her leg back. "I'm really fine, thank you. You don't need to take care of me." Mayor Bigman smiled. He looked up at her and said, "No matter what you have gone through, your body is yours. Your foot is injured. You won't be able to go home later. Don't worry, I'm not a bad person. Even bad people wouldn't dare act recklessly in front of a police station. I'm just a little busybody. You've twisted your ankle. Don't move. I'll give you a push so that you can at least walk normally." Evelyn bit her lips and didn't say anything. She lowered her head and could see his dark hair while he was gently massaging her feet. This world was really unbelievable. The person closest to you will betray you, but a stranger can be willing to help you. This world is truly bizarre. An inexplicable malice and an inexplicable goodwill can happen at any moment. As Evelyn thought about it, she couldn't hold her tears. A drop fell on the back of Mayor Bigman's hand. He was stunned, but didn't look up. Instead, he said to her softly, "Did something bad happen to you?"
Evelyn asked, "Why did you help me? We don't even know each other. Why are you so kind to me for no reason?"
Mayor Bigman raised his eyebrows. "No reason. Maybe it's because I was born to meddle in people's business."
Evelyn bit her lips. When she heard him, she wiped her tears and forced a smile. "You really are a strange person."
"Am I strange?"
Mayor Bigman smiled. Evelyn bit her lip and shook her head. "No, you're actually very good. You are a very kind person. I was mistreated by someone with bad intentions last night and also saw a bad person take off the mask of hypocrisy. I didn't expect to meet a good person like you."
Evelyn looked at him and felt a surge of warmth in her heart. Mayor Bigman pursed his lips and looked at the tear on Evelyn's pants. He lowered his head and took off the brooch on his chest to hide the damage on her pants. He looked up and smiled. "God is fair. He lets you meet bad people, but he will also let you meet good people."
Evelyn blinked and whispered, "That's right. I've met many bad people. I should be able to recognize the good ones." She suddenly had a feeling of enlightenment. In this world, other than life and death, what else mattered? Besides, last night was a nightmare. She and Harvey would never see each other again, and Bill was a passerby in her life. She should look forward. Although others didn't treat her well, she couldn't keep thinking about them assaulting her. She couldn't be controlled by them. She still had a long time to live. Mayor Bigman saw that she had pulled herself together and smiled. He stood up and gave her a gentle nod.
"You can walk now. Well, I still have work to do. Good luck. Goodbye."
Evelyn had faced the worst one could imagine in the last few hours. Devoured by a lustful monster and betrayed by someone she trusted. Such an act of care from a total stranger helped her collect her pieces and get back on her feet. Was this a genuine gesture of goodwill, or another trap to ensnare gullible Evelyn? Episode 6. The Universe Hates Her. Evelyn now felt much better. It took her a while to realize that the kind person who just helped her had walked quite a distance. Evelyn quickly stood up and asked, "May I ask your name? I'm really grateful for your help. I'm very glad that I met you. And this brooch, how do I return it to you?" Evelyn was really grateful to him. In the moment when she was in despair, he saved her, like a guardian angel. Mayor Bigman turned around. His upright posture was very elegant. Under the sunlight, light flickered. He was like an angel descended from heaven. His gentle voice mixed with the rustling of the Norway maple tree.
"You don't have to thank me. You can keep it. If you feel lucky to meet me, it will be my gift to you."
Evelyn lowered her head to look at the brooch on her pants. She couldn't help but notice that he was very handsome and wished he'd told her his name. He was just kind. She didn't want to be a nuisance to a man who showed her compassion. Evelyn didn't ask any more questions after that. Still, there was something about the man's demeanor that left a warm feeling in her heart. A small smile slipped onto her lips as she shook her head. Sometimes just one little act of kindness could brighten someone's day. Evelyn turned around and strode out of South Park Central. There were a couple of people walking in her direction, so she quickly pulled herself together. She could never imagine that the person who had given her this brooch was none other than the mayor of this city. Not only that, but the brooch was made of pure gold. Even the ruby set into it was genuine. If she had known about this, she would have been scared out of her mind. How on earth was she going to accept such an expensive gift? Stepping out into the light, Evelyn took a deep breath and hurried home. Memories of last night faded in the back of her mind as she changed her clothes and headed back to the office. She had been stalking that bastard for half a month, which was why she wasn't able to report in time at the company. At this point, she was spiraling, and her cheeks flushed in embarrassment. This wouldn't end in a happily ever after, that was for sure.
"Well, where's the big news you promised?"
Just as she had thought, the chief editor ambushed her as soon as she stepped inside the office. "I'm sorry, I lost him. Just please give me another chance.
I've already given you 12 days, haven't I? At this point, I doubt you're even taking this job seriously.
The chief editor scoffed, shaking his head.
I've already given you enough chances. Now you can head over to the finance department to settle your bill. You don't need to come in tomorrow.
Her heart sank. Sir, please. I know I made a mistake, but I swear this won't happen again. Just give me another chance.
Haven't I already given you enough chances? Life is already cruel. Now pack your things and go.
A part of her had already known that she messed up, and she had already mentally prepared herself for what's to come. But even then, she couldn't help but feel miserable. With a sigh, she packed up her things and walked out of the office. The universe truly must hate her. Her gaze fell on the camera she was holding. She had bought all her equipment by herself, invested all her time and effort into getting the right camera for the right occasion, and now she didn't even have half the chance to get her investment back. The salary she had gotten wasn't even enough to pay off the gear. Evelyn sniffled, running her fingers down the surface. In the end, not only did she fail to earn money, but she had lost it. Was this all for nothing? It's a good thing my parents left us a house, she murmured to herself, gazing up at the sky. Otherwise, I wouldn't have enough money to pay rent. Forget it. She'd just look for another job. The little money she had earned would be enough to treat her brother to a good meal when he'd return for the weekend. She lowered her head and crossed the street. She didn't even realize that she had arrived at the busiest part of the city. Everyone looked so stylish. The women were covered in makeup, wore designer clothes, and looked like they'd just stepped out of the runway. Their bags were from Louis Vuitton. Their lips were smeared with Givenchy's lipstick. They smelled of Chanel or Dior. The men were dressed in Italian suits, with Mont Blanc belts and Vacheron Constantin watches wrapped around their wrists. Even their cars were of top class, all limited editions. While she wasn't that materialistic, Evelyn couldn't help but sigh with envy. These were the type of people who didn't have to care about getting a salary. Why would they when they have a credit card that could buy them anything they want? If she had this kind of life, she would have gone ahead and chased her dreams. Her fingers fiddled around her clothes. She had always wanted to design clothes for a living, but she never really had a chance. Being a reporter was the only way she could earn some cash. However, she never really realized how difficult the world was. Back when she was in school, they always told her to learn a lot of skills. That way, she would be able to follow her dreams. It was only when she stepped out of those walls did she realize how difficult it is to even find a job. The Cage Group has reached an agreement with an American fashion company, Plush. Brent Cogg, their president, has stated that Mr. Cage was one of the most refined men he'd met. Calm, wise, reserved, and elegant. It was only expected that he'll be favored by the biggest fashion magnate. It seems that Cage Group is climbing up to newer heights. The LED screen displayed the woman reporter as she told them of the massive news. Her eyes were glittering on the screen, and Evelyn had the urge to vomit. She tightly held her bag. This was the same person she swore to never see again. She wanted to take revenge against him, wanted to give him a taste of his own medicine. But it wasn't like she could do anything. After all, everyone could see how powerful he was. Her fingernails dug into her palms. Even now, her figure looked like a dot compared to the large screen in front of her. She was insignificant to him, like a little dot on the wall. They weren't on the same level. With a sigh, she turned around and continued to walk. Not so far away, there was a luxury car parked by the roadside. Its heavily tinted windows glinted under the sunlight, attracting attention from the passers-by. Even then, Harvey seemed like he couldn't care less as he stared at Evelyn's tiny frame.
The police said that she had stayed at the station till 3 a.m. Only then did her friend bail her out.
The secretary took a deep breath.
After that, she went to the office where she was fired from her job. Asked the police to wipe her record.
He pursed his lips.
As for her work, it's for the best that they fired her. Don't worry about that.
Yes, sir. The young man gazed at her retreating figure. Hesitation flashed across his eyes as he slowly said,
It's rare for you to be so interested in a woman. If you like her very much, why don't you just... I'd prefer you to stay quiet.
He glared at him. Zach Gibbons, his secretary, pushed his glasses up his nose. And despite this, he didn't seem to be intimidated by the man's glare, having seen it many times before.
I just assumed that it would be different this time around. There are rules that we must follow in this world.
He looked away.
While she's different, that doesn't mean that there's anything more between us. Don't think too much about it. She's still a nobody to me. Of course she is. Zach smiled bitterly. In reality, he thought otherwise. A part of him couldn't help but wonder if Harvey was really trying not to indulge himself with any woman, or if he was actually trying to keep his heart safe. He drummed his fingers on the side of the car and turned away. Besides, what were views if not subject to change? Even the slightest event or a small interaction could change how a person sees the world. Let's just go where we need to go. Harvey finally closed his eyes. They headed to Harvey's residence. There, he was not the flashy CEO, but rather a man who was still a bachelor. A man that everyone was desperate to see married. He was used to these kinds of conversations. It's always been a bunch of old men discussing his potential matches in great detail. They talked about how beneficial it would be for him to get married, especially if it was to another famous woman. But he never really needed the money or the prestige. Why would he? He didn't even know where those old men got their ideas from. The Cage Group didn't need to rely on any other companies, like he didn't need to rely on any other woman. It was a good thing he still respected them as seniors. Otherwise, he would have just upped and left. The last thing he needed to hear was how he was lacking in that department if he didn't find a girl to marry. Harvey scoffed and shook his head, as if he needed that lecture from them. Evelyn didn't even notice that someone was staring at her from afar. Instead, she simply pushed the man to the back of her mind. For her, her conflict with Harvey was nothing but a nightmare. All she could do was let go of the past, suppress the pain, and forget it ever happened. After heading back, she went to the market to buy groceries. As soon as she got home, Evelyn saw a large guy sitting on the sofa with a large smile on his face. He didn't have a shirt on, and there was a towel hanging around his neck. He had clearly just taken a bath. Rolling her eyes, she patted his head. "Brat, put on your clothes." Happiness knew no bounds for Evelyn. Her brother was back from the university early. Her best friend was not here, and she needed someone to comfort her after what she had been through. And who could be better than her brother? But why was he back early? Did he already know what had happened to her? Did Harvey go to the extent of informing her brother about the night? To torture her? Episode 7. A Heartwarming Welcome. Mark turned around, and his bright eyes widened. "What's wrong? Are my muscles looking too good?" He flexed his biceps and posed in front of her, showing off. He sat up, revealing his well-built figure. Other women wouldn't have been able to handle him. In fact, some would have been flushed and ducked their heads in excitement. But Evelyn looked resigned. The last thing she needed was to deal with her noisy brother. Grabbing the t-shirt lying on the floor, she threw it at him. "I've already seen your bubbly butt when you were a child," she snorted. "Nothing's changed." "Hey, I thought you weren't going to mention that anymore." His cheeks flushed bright red. The more he ducked and shook his head, the more she laughed. Her lips spread into a wicked grin as she feigned innocence. "Oh, what's wrong? I still remember all the little moles dotted across." Before she could finish, he jumped up from the sofa and lifted her up into the air. "Laugh one more time and I'll throw you out," he laughed, swinging her around. "Hey," she protested, wiggling under his hold. All right, you win. Just put me down." Knowing that she had enough, he followed her lead. That still didn't remove the smug smile on his face. "You're so small," he teased. "You should have been my younger sister." She frowned. "Since I'm the little sister, why don't you cook for me instead?" she threatened. Mark had always considered his sister's food a delicacy. If she refused to cook for him, then what the heck was he going to do with his life? His face paled and he hurried to put her down. "Still the best older sister in the world," he praised sheepishly as his eyes glinted. "Now, can you please cook me something? I'm starving." "You're really something else, aren't you?" Murmuring to herself, she helplessly got up to cook. After closing the kitchen door behind her, Evelyn clutched her chest and took a deep breath. All the memories of what she'd been through flooded her mind, and she squeezed her eyes shut. No, this night was supposed to be just a normal night for her. Now that Mark had finally returned from university, the last thing she needed was to cause any more problems. She patted her face. "It's all over," she murmured to herself. "It's all going to be fine." It was a good thing that everything was back to normal. While she wasn't totally fine, she'd get better one step at a time. She took another deep breath and began to wash the vegetables. Within a few minutes, her mind was already much more relaxed. It was as if everything had come to pass. With a smile on her face, Evelyn carried all the dishes out. "Mark," she called out, "time to eat! Go and wash your hands!" After a night of catching up, the two of them sat on the sofa and watched some TV. It was already past 8 in the evening when she glanced at her watch. Her camera still sat on her desk, and she couldn't help but feel a little sad. This was the first night she had in weeks of not squatting in plain sight. Her legs ached at the memory of all the mosquito bites. Not only did she have to deal with her boss's yapping, but she also got to finally enjoy her space. Sure, getting fired wasn't what she wanted, but she wasn't depressed about it. While she tried to keep a strong face, Mark could tell something was off. There were a couple of times when he wanted to ask her what happened, but every time he tried, he found a way to back out. Evelyn pretended not to read his questioning glances. A part of her hoped that he wouldn't ask her about work or how her progress was going. Otherwise, she wouldn't even know what to say. Unfortunately, he wouldn't let things go that easily. "You're not working today," he said slowly. "I thought you said you were heading out every night just to catch your big break. Did something happen at work?" About that." She clenched her fists. "I wanted to talk to you about this, but I don't work there anymore." He was surprised, but his face immediately brightened. "It's a good thing you're out of the entertainment industry. You know how hated paparazzi are. Besides, you don't have to worry about my tuition," he quickly said. "I have some funds left, and it covers all my living expenses too." "Scholarship fund?" Her heart sank and she looked down. "It's my fault," she murmured. "It's all my fault." "Sis, don't say that." He nudged her. "Besides, I already told you, didn't I? Once I'm successful, I'll be the one taking care of you." "Of course you will." She leaned against him. Even then, she still couldn't help but feel guilty. As the older sister, she was supposed to be the one guiding, teaching him all the things he needed to know. He was just a college kid, and now he was forced to share this burden with her. Honestly, Mark was an outstanding child. If he weren't stuck with her, he would probably be better off. "By the way, did that Bill Rogers guy bother you again?" Seeing her sad, he immediately changed the topic. "If you ever get tired of him, you gotta tell me, all right? I'll set that guy straight." Her lips twitched. He really knew the worst topics to bring up, huh? Helplessly sighing, she turned away. "Don't worry, he won't come by and harass me anymore." A smile spread across her face. "I've always thought he's a good guy, but you were right about him. The guy's sick in the head. Seems you've always been a great judge of character." "Oh? Where's the 'you shouldn't judge a person by his looks' or 'I'm sure you'll warm up to him soon'?" Mark leaned in. "Did you knock your head or something?" Evelyn smiled bitterly. "Don't be sarcastic. I'm being serious. The guy's a jerk." She looked out the window. Turned out he was sleeping with Elise while trying to date me. "It's a good thing you don't like him anymore." He pursed his lips, struggling to restrain himself. "That kind of scum isn't worthy of it." He drew his sister into a hug. Just then, a trace of coldness flashed across his eyes. It turned out that his sister had already woken up about Bill's character. It's a good thing that she never gave him a chance, otherwise... His hands clenched into fists. Mark was going to murder him. Who did he think he was? "There are just so many things running through my mind," she exhaled, shaking her head. "Let's just forget about it, all right? What about a baseball game?" "I'll go get some drinks." He smiled, heading to the fridge. The siblings watched the baseball game on the sofa. Soon enough, the intense game was enough to get their thoughts straight. The awkward atmosphere dissipated between them, and they found themselves cheering for the players. "Yes, it's a home run! Come on, catch up! Damn it, he caught the ball!" Evelyn threw her hands up in the air, obviously frustrated from the results of the game. Her brother, who was watching from the side, couldn't help but smile. The two of them watched TV till midnight. Her eyes were slowly drooping as she found herself leaning against Mark's shoulder. Her breathing slowed. He just ate the popcorn, watching till the end of the baseball game, so she could ask him whatever when she wakes up. Once the game was over, he turned off the TV and carried her back to her bedroom. He put her on the bed and watched her sleep for a while. "When I grow up, it's going to be my turn to protect you," he promised. Evelyn simply turned around in response, not hearing his promise. With a sigh, he turned around and left. A few hours later, sunlight finally streamed through the window, and she was suddenly woken up by the sound of her phone ringing. She squinted, covering her eyes from the bright light. Still a bit dizzy, Evelyn picked up the phone.
Hello? Who is this?
Who is it? Has it been so long that you already forgot all about me? On the other side, a bold voice shook her awake. Come pick me up at the airport, will you? Cindy! She scrambled up. You're back! Cindy Green strolled out of the airport, taking off her sunglasses. The glittering city lights awaited her as she took a deep breath.
Ah, it's good to be back.
She exhaled and turned to her phone. How have you been? Evelyn glanced up. A sheepish smile graced her face. Well, a lot of things have come up, she chuckled.
I miss you, Cindy. It's been so long.
Please don't do that, she shook her head. Where are you anyway?
A lot has happened, and Are you still at home?
Yes. She didn't bother to explain any further. After all, nobody needed to know what happened to her. Evelyn turned to the side, fiddling with her blankets. Luckily, Cindy didn't ask any more questions. Instead, she scoffed and waved her hands. I knew you'd bail out on me like this, she teased. Should have just driven myself. Just make sure to get dressed, okay? I'll pick you up in a bit for dinner. After saying their goodbyes, they hung up the phone. It was like always. If anything, her friend always had a backup plan, and she had always been decisive, the complete opposite of Evelyn's quiet personality. Around 30 minutes later, her friend arrived at Evelyn's residential area. The two of them went to a high-end restaurant, a favorite of hers.
I'll have a croquet monsieur, oysters, and an onion soup.
Cindy immediately started ordering, since she already knew the menu inside out. After all, this was the first time they've seen each other for months. Might as well go big or go home. As soon as she finished choosing all the dishes, she glanced up.
So, how have you been? She started asking. Is your work going well?
Did you find any guy to fall in love with? Have you already eloped to Vegas? Please don't go there. Evelyn stuck out her tongue. She usually didn't hide anything from her, but the last thing she wanted was to share her memories with Harvey. Instead, she replied, I've offended Harvey Cage and lost my job because of it. Her fork clattered onto the plate.
What did you say?
Are you dumb? Cindy was close to clawing her eyes out.
He's Harvey Cage, the richest guy in New York, and you offended him?
Look, consider yourself lucky that you only lost your job and not your life. That guy's scary as hell.
I know.
Look, let's not talk about him anymore. She waved her hand, afraid that her friend would keep asking more questions. Glancing around, she lowered her voice. But you know what happened next? Turns out Bill revealed his true colors. He'd had an affair with Elise a long time ago. As soon as Cindy heard Bill's name, her attention was immediately diverted. What did that asshole do? Evelyn resisted the urge to sigh in relief. Luckily, her friend didn't ask too much. Otherwise, she would have died from embarrassment. He blew up on me, said he wasted his time and that he should have stayed with Elise. Can you believe that jerk? Well, I'm not surprised. Cindy shook her head. I knew there was something off about the guy. It's just, he creeps me out. I still remember you talking about him a few months ago. At least now you know.
True.
And hey, it's not like we're together. It doesn't matter anymore. Her friend nodded in agreement. At least it didn't go further from friendship. Now you know who to avoid. But that's not the point. Right now, you need to find a job. Just then, a thought occurred to her. Hey, do you think of working in this restaurant? I happen to know someone. Here? Evelyn furrowed her eyebrows. I don't think they're hiring. Her fingers twitched. Just because they didn't say they're hiring doesn't mean they're not. They're just looking more subtly. Cindy winked. Besides, your French isn't bad, right? And you even worked at a coffee shop before that reporting job of yours. I'm sure you'll do quite well here. Just as she was about to stand up, Evelyn grabbed her hand. No, she started. If I don't do well here, wouldn't I be embarrassing you? Just let me find a job for myself. Oh, please. Don't you want to accept help from a friend? You had the same excuse when you refused to work at my dad's company. If you're really my friend, you'll accept my help. Cindy shook her head, patting her friend's hand. Look, it's not like I'm handing you the money. I'm just giving you the opportunity to work for it. Won't you accept my help just this once? At her pleading look, Evelyn sighed in defeat. Fine. Now, watch me work my magic. Raising her head, she stepped forward.
Just wait here. I'll go look for the general manager. Thanks, Cindy. Cindy scoffed. What are you thanking me for? After all, I'm your best friend, aren't I? As her friend strolled to the back, Evelyn rolled her eyes and shook her head. It seemed as if not a day had passed. Her train of happy thoughts came to a sudden halt when the question of what she was supposed to do if the manager didn't accept Cindy's request dawned on her. How would she support her brother if she didn't find a job soon? Episode 8. Babe, I'm Pregnant. As Evelyn sat alone at the table, she finished all the desserts and waited for her friend to return. More for me, I guess, she murmured to herself, taking a bite from her slice. Her gaze drifted aimlessly, watching the customers who were walking in and out of the restaurant. They were very well dressed, but there was one couple that caught her eye. The man's suit was well ironed. Anyone could tell that the pants were custom and handmade. From his expensive tie to his classic leather shoes, he looked like $1,000,000. The woman's outfit definitely looked quite expensive too. And her shoes. Her lips twisted into a smile. Those yellow heels were quite a sight to behold. But if she were the designer, she would have embellished it with green gemstones, just to better highlight the beautiful color. Perhaps it might look even better with a strap. No. Evelyn shook her head and looked away. The last thing she needed to think about was designing things. Her gaze rose to their faces. They were dressed very tastefully, so obviously she was curious who they were. As soon as she saw their faces, a low and magnetic voice reached her ears. Everything inside her froze, and she was hit with a flashback of the last time she heard him speak. Her fork clattered onto the plate, and she jolted. Harvey? That guy was Harvey? How was the world so small that she had bumped into him? Were the heavens really that mad at her? Was this her punishment? Why was this guy here? Her hands clenched into fists. At this point, she just wanted to get the hell out of there. It's a high-end restaurant, so she should have expected him to come here. She was the one who shouldn't be here in the first place. Her fingers twitched. Instead of turning away, she decided to listen in on their conversation. "You're the one who they've sent to meet up with me?" the man asked. "You look all right." Evelyn pursed her lips. Was he going on a blind date? Thank you. You don't look so bad yourself. The woman nodded. Since we're alone, would it be okay to call you Harvey? Go right ahead. Evelyn couldn't help but grit her teeth. Did the woman really think he was interested in her? That wasn't even a compliment. She didn't expect a guy like him to know anything about going out on blind dates. This must have been some sort of business meeting where both partners could benefit. Thinking of this, her eyes lit up. Maybe she could finally get her revenge. She took a deep breath. If she sabotaged his blind date and ruined him in front of the young woman, he'd lose the business deal. Not only that, but he'd lose any chances with her. Within a few minutes, her mind was already made up as she quietly left her table. Walking to the seat behind Harvey, she listened in on what they were talking about. Let me introduce myself. I'm Linda Brown. You already had business dealings with my father before this. The young woman smiled. Look, I'm aware that you're not looking for a blind date and that there are probably thousands of women who'd want to date you. But I'm excited that you've at least given me a chance. Hopefully, if this goes well, we can meet up with each other again. There was something so elegant with her words that even Harvey decided to listen in for once, without any interruptions. It was obvious that the woman was well educated. Yet, she was also very boring. But those old geezers definitely put in a lot of work in picking his next blind date. Not only was she humble, but she was also pretty sweet. At this point, he couldn't even find an excuse to leave. However, it wasn't like he couldn't just continue. The last thing he wanted was to lift these women's hopes up, especially when he knew this relationship wasn't heading anywhere. His cold eyes settled on Linda. You look very smart, reasonable, and lovely. It was obvious that the man wasn't finished, but Evelyn couldn't hold it in anymore. She glanced up and slammed her hand onto the table.
A determined look flashed across her face. The more he liked this woman, the more she wanted to mess things up for the both of them. "But, babe, I thought you said that you liked me." Evelyn immediately scuttled out from her hiding spot and wrapped her hands around his arm. Her eyes widened in disbelief. The woman was petite enough to slip through the bustling bodies. As soon as her weight fell on his shoulders, he glanced to the side. His instincts were all leading to shoving her away, but when he saw who she was, he froze. Huh? Evelyn? What was she doing here? It never occurred to him that she'd be here. As soon as she saw his forehead crinkling and his frown deepening, her gaze brightened even more. The grip she had on his arm tightened. "You said you'd always love me as long as I'm around," she whined, shooting a glare at the woman. "Who is this ugly-looking woman? You can't be with her." The corners of his mouth twitched. "Harvey? Who is she?" The woman on the other side of the table still managed to keep her cool. However, her expression looked a bit frumpled from the sudden appearance. His eyes narrowed. Since she was here, he might as well follow his lead. Wrapping his arm around her waist, he lowered his head. "Evelyn, what are you doing here?" His charming voice sounded. "I thought I told you that I'd visit you in a few days." She blinked. What the hell was he doing? Was he playing tricks with her just to scare her off? Well, there's no way she's backing down without a fight. This man was going to hell, and she'd be the one sending him there. Feigning ignorance, she sighed. I just felt so uncomfortable, so I went to the hospital." There was a short pause before she looked up at him again. "The doctor said I'm pregnant. We're having a baby. Let's see how well he performs." Instead of being annoyed, Harvey drew her even closer. "Are you kidding me? Then you should keep the pregnancy. We'll take care of the child together," he said softly. Evelyn deliberately acted childishly, rather than the intelligent reporter she was. Today she was wearing a t-shirt and a pair of mom jeans. Her hair was tied up in a ponytail. With such a sweet voice, no one could have guessed her age. As soon as she saw what was happening, the woman's face morphed into a scowl. "Mr. Cage, what the hell is going on?" "What is going on? My girlfriend is pregnant, and I don't think I'll go on this blind date." His voice was as cold as his gaze. Suddenly, his eyes glinted. "However, if you're interested in becoming a stepmother to my child, then perhaps we can meet again." Something in the woman's expression had changed. Even if she wasn't as rich as him, she was still from a classy background. There was no way she was gonna let some man take her for granted like this. If she wanted to marry into the wealthiest family, she wasn't gonna stoop so low for some man to take advantage of her. Or to be some kid's stepmother. She was young. She had better dreams to pursue. Instead of picking a fight, Linda gave a deep sigh and picked up her bag. "It seems you've already made up your mind," she said kindly. "I wish you all the best, Harvey. As for this date, let's forget it ever happened, all right?" As soon as she was done talking, she hurried away in panic. If she had looked back, she would have seen him smiling in accomplishment. It seemed that his problems had been solved just like that. After the woman left, the only people standing there were Harvey and Evelyn. Instead of looking proud and accomplished, Evelyn looked like she wanted to throw up. Her weary eyes glanced up at the imposing man as her hands shook at her sides. Didn't she just ruin his date? What was he so excited about? What was going on? However, before she could finally let go of his arm, his grip on her waist tightened. Her eyes widened, but no matter how many times she struggled under his grip, it was no use. "It's too late to escape now," he mocked. Fuck! She initially wanted to humiliate him, wanted to ruin the date with that lady. But what the hell did she do wrong? Was she just walking straight into his trap? Did she even ruin the date, or had she helped him get rid of her? Ah, damn it! His eyes narrowed. "Now that it's only us, why don't you tell me about the baby you were talking about?" She looked like a prey staring up at her predator. Taking interest in her shoes, she stuttered out, all of this is just some big misunderstanding." Why was she stammering? Couldn't she defend herself anymore? Lowering her head, she already knew that her struggling was futile. "Look, you caught me all right," she snapped. "Now what the hell do you want?" "What do I want? Weren't you the one who came here to see me?" Harvey lifted up her chin. "What? You couldn't get enough from me the other night, so you want to get back together with me? Is that it?"
"What did you just say?"
Her cheeks flushed. Did he just assume that she had followed him here? Who the hell was he? Some type of god? "Oh, fuck you. You think you're all that?" she spat out, struggling to wrench herself from his grip. "No one would be caught dead following some asshole like you. Now let go of me." "You know I need to teach you a lesson."
Raising his eyebrows, he leaned down and kissed her right on the lips. His tongue darted across hers as his scent immediately overpowered her. Memories flashed at the back of her mind, and she could feel her entire body stiffening from the contact. This time she wasn't going to back down without a fight. Taking her chance, she broke free from his grip and slapped him right on the face. The crisp sound filled the air as her angry voice reverberated across the hall. "Bastard!" Harvey fell back, stunned. He had never been slapped in his entire life. In fact, he had always been considered that handsome and sexy man every woman wished they had. He was practically carved by God himself. Not only did this woman hit him, but she was also the one who had first provoked him. Evelyn, however, immediately panicked as soon as her palm hit the corners of his face. Fuck, now she was in for it. Her legs were practically quaking at the thought, hurriedly standing up from the sofa. His entire face darkened intensely. Evelyn was familiar with this look, and her innards shuddered with dread. She knew from her experience that nothing good followed this look of Harvey. It was the look of rage and vengeance. She stood there stupefied under the vindictive gaze of Harvey, with only one question buzzing in her mind. What awaits her next? Episode 9. Incited the Monster. Harvey stared at Evelyn for a long time, and she could feel herself shrinking under his gaze. Swallowing, she couldn't find the courage to even utter a word. The heated situation had already attracted the attention of the surrounding customers. It had also been noticed by Cindy Green and the lobby managers as they were walking over. Everyone leaned in, wanting to see what would happen next. The lobby manager first spotted the woman's face. It was pale white, and her bottom lip was trembling. She looked like she had just seen a ghost. Cindy frowned. Why is Evelyn standing there? As soon as the lobby manager heard that, he immediately walked over, acting like a hero coming to save the day. His forehead crinkled in distaste.
"What the hell is happening here? Miss, if you'd just come with me."
However, before he could finish, he was met with Harvey's gloomy expression. His legs had become like jelly that he almost gave out.
I had no clue that Mr. Cage was dining here."
His attitude turned a 180 almost instantly.
You should have told us. What would you like to order?"
Harvey sat elegantly on the chair with his legs crossed. His eyes were still narrowed at the young woman sitting in front of him.
"I have some private matters I need to settle. Clear out the place."
He didn't even need to say it twice. The lobby manager took a step back. All the pride he had running into his veins vanished.
Yes, sir, I'll do that right away."
As the man pulled back, Cindy rushed to Evelyn's side. "What happened?" she whispered urgently. "Did you get on his nerves again? What did you do?" She stared at her friend in helplessness and despair. Cindy's heart almost skipped a beat in fright. This was the first time she had ever seen her friend look so desperate. The girl must obviously be in a mess, and Harvey already looked furious. What could have gone wrong? Although she had seen the man in several dinner parties, it wasn't like she could get close to him. After all, compared to the Cages, the Greens were of little significance.
Please excuse us, but Mr. Cage has asked us to clear the lobby,"
the manager requested politely, clapping his hands together. The elites didn't need to be told twice as they hurried out of the restaurant. After all, no matter how rich they were, they wouldn't dare to offend someone like him. As soon as everyone had left, the lobby manager returned.
"Mr. Cage, what do you need?"
Harvey raised his head.
"This young lady standing in front of me. How did she get in here? I'm very curious."
"What are you talking about?" Evelyn clenched her fists. Not knowing what the man was trying to do, she stepped forward. "I told you I was invited by a friend, didn't I? I didn't stalk you all the way here. Why did this man have to insist she was following him? It's not like she was a reporter anymore. Because of him, she had gotten fired."
Cindy grew up in this circle, so she knew exactly how his temper was like. Pulling her friend back, she awkwardly stood between them.
Mr. Cage, you're gonna have to pardon my friend. She's very impulsive when it comes to these things. She shook her head. I apologize on her behalf.
And you are?
Harvey's eyes swept over her. I am Cindy Green, the daughter of Adam Sr.
Ah. Although he nodded in understanding, his glare was still as cold as ice. Well, Miss Green, this matter is strictly between your friend and I. I wouldn't want any interference from a third party. I'd advise you to leave now, so you don't get involved. I really can't say what's gonna happen next.
Harvey controlled Long Island. Whatever he says goes. He had the keys to the city, and he was capable of dealing with anyone who offended him, even the city mayor. If she didn't leave immediately, she could put her family in a big mess. However, her leaving would amount to abandoning her best friend to a much bigger mess. What was she going to do? As soon as Evelyn heard the man's threat, she quickly pulled Cindy out of the way. Despite being small, she was quite strong herself. She stepped forward between the two of them, straightening her back. This matter is between the two of us, Cindy, she stated. You should leave. But it will only make matters worse. Besides, I still need to trash out some issues with him. Just, please, leave. Evelyn didn't even look at her friend as she stared up at the man in front of her. Don't bring anyone into this mess. The corners of his lips twitched up into a small smile. There was something about her bright eyes that drew his attention every single time she gazed up at him. She was small, but her eyes were filled with stubbornness.
You're right. Let's not involve anyone else, he agreed. All of you, get out.
The manager didn't know what else to do. Instead, he helplessly pulled Cindy back, afraid that she'd make matters worse.
Miss Green, let's go, he whispered. They're right.
Cindy stared at her friend for a long time before slowly nodding. The last thing she needed was to make him even angrier and make things worse for her friend. With one last nod, she turned and left. As soon as they heard their retreating footsteps, Harvey crossed his arms over his chest.
You should be thanking me, he snarked. At least you won't embarrass yourself in front of your friend.
Embarrass myself? What are you going to do? Tell the cops I slapped you? Evelyn snorted. Go right ahead.
It seems your little trip to the station had nothing on you.
He stared at her with raised eyebrows.
Tell me, are you stupid or are you just careless?
She pursed her lips. It's not like I did anything wrong, did I? So what if I stayed at the police station? I am very much innocent.
Are you trying to get on my nerves?
Evelyn plastered a smile on her face. Oh, Mr. Cage, let's call it even this time, all right? You screwed me over once, I got back at you. I guess we're even, and we owe each other nothing. Owe each other nothing?
Harvey resisted the urge to snort.
Does she think that she can provoke him and get away with it? If it had happened before this, he would have let it slide. But now, what reason did he have to let her off the hook that easily when she keeps inciting him?
Harvey pursed his lips. In this world, there is no such thing as not owing each other anything, Evelyn. You should know by now that there are consequences for every action. If you provoke someone, the least you can do is apologize for it.
She scowled. So, if I apologize, you'll let me go? Even then, a part of her hesitated. Was this even possible? If so, then she should be the one apologizing, right? It wasn't because she felt as if she were in the wrong, but because she needed to ensure her safety.
The lady you scared off some moments ago was a blind date organized by my parents, he slowly said. Now I gotta figure out how to clean up this mess you created.
As soon as she heard that, her face darkened. It was obvious that he wasn't going to let her go that easily. It's not like you wanted to go on a blind date with her in the first place.
It's my business whether I wanted to or not, but it's still pretty clear that you're the one who messed up my date.
Harvey squinted his eyes.
If you don't pay for the consequences, then not only will you be in trouble, but your entire family as well. Other members of my family are not as forgiving as I am, you know.
Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. Her family. The only family she had was her brother Mark. She didn't want her brother to be in trouble because of her. Biting her lips, she took a deep breath and looked down. Her hands were shaking as she struggled to keep herself calm. The last thing she wanted now was to screw everything up for him. I really am sorry for causing you trouble, she said through gritted teeth. Please don't involve my family. After all, I was the one who acted against you, so
Punish me instead." He raised an eyebrow. "You really care about your family that much? Are you willing to do anything for them?" "Yes," she responded stiffly. "Do you want me to kneel down and apologize? I can do that." She didn't care if this man wanted to humiliate her. All she wanted was to keep her brother safe. As soon as Harvey heard her say that, the corners of his lips twitched upwards. "Kneeling? Do you really think I'm that cruel?" "I don't know you that well." Cruel. Not only did he sleep with her, but he even had her arrested. If that wasn't cruel, then what the hell was? She struggled with the urge to roll her eyes. He was a pervert, that's what. Harvey obviously wasn't pleased by her comments. Instead, he nodded in the direction of the sofa. "Go there and lie down," he stated. "If you do well, I'll let it slide." Evelyn had already made up her mind and followed suit. She didn't even say a word of rejection. She was like a fish, and a bitter one at that. He frowned. There was something about her attitude that seemed off. Something crept into his stomach, but he immediately wiped it away. Why the heck did he feel so disgusted? He shook his head and turned away. "Get up and come here." Evelyn frowned in disbelief. She had already accepted her fate, yet he seemed to be unsatisfied by her sudden compliance. Did he want to torment her even more? Even if she was a bit disgruntled, she didn't say another word in reply. Instead, she got up and walked over to stand in front of him. Harvey stared at her for a long time, taking in her small frame and her flushed face. However, this time her face was marred with disgust and anxiety, something that made him harden his resolve. She had always been so stubborn, but now seeing her following his orders, he could tell she was miserable. A part of him reminisced the night they had together, when her body trembled in pleasure as she willingly wrapped her legs around his, how her lips would part in a sweet moan as she hungrily thrust herself up against him. It was her touch and voice that he missed. "Sit on my lap," Harvey ordered. There was a hint of surprise that flashed on her face, but it was soon replaced with nervousness. Lowering her head in embarrassment, she furrowed her eyebrows. "What are you talking about?" "Was I not clear?" He patted her on the shoulder again. "Sit. Don't make me repeat myself." She had never even touched a man before, much less sat on them. Even though she was embarrassed, she didn't want to upset him anymore. It was best to do as he said. Otherwise, she'd just be digging herself a deeper hole to die in. While she was willing to do that, she didn't want to subject Mark to humiliation. Her brother was already paying his tuition all by himself through his scholarship. The last thing she needed was to add another burden on his shoulders. Clenching her fists, Evelyn took a deep breath. She ignored her racing heart and clumsy legs as she sat on his lap, bracing herself for the worst. It would only last a few hours, she thought. Was that it? Would her suffering end just in a few hours? Or had she put herself in an endless loop? Episode 10. A Rabbit in a Wolf's Trap. Harvey reached out and pulled her body close to him, just to prevent her from falling to the ground. She yelped, but didn't say a thing. Everything inside her felt like it was about to explode. It was as if her lungs had stopped getting oxygen and her stomach started imploding. Harvey pursed his lips and leaned on the sofa. "Now you can start taking off your clothes." She blinked. "What?" "Take off mine first, then yours. Or you can do it the other way around," he said softly. "Any way works." He deliberately leaned in, just enough that his lips brushed against hers. Evelyn flushed deep red as she shrank back from his intimidating gaze. What the hell was he doing? She could smell the masculine scent wafting towards her, and she could feel his skin rubbing against hers. His body felt very hot against hers. There was just something about the way his chest was pressed up against hers. That was enough to make her legs turn into a puddle. Her hands trembled next to him as she struggled to remember what he said. "What are you waiting for?" Harvey cocked up an eyebrow. "Did you know how precious my time is? If you drag things for too long, it won't do you any good, you know." She blushed. Just stay far away from me. I'll unbutton your shirt now." He leaned back obediently. Evelyn swallowed as her delicate hands drifted to the top of his shirt. She was quite familiar with men's clothes fabric. After all, she used to be a designer, so she knew how to efficiently put on and take off clothes to reach the timer. But there was something about the air that lay heavy on her hands. It was as if the earth itself was holding her back. It didn't help that her eyes were drawn to his very defined muscles. He had a very nice body. The man would look good in anything if he wanted to. It was this thought that caused her to be a bit more clumsy in taking off her own clothes. Her hands started to shake as she held onto her top, trying to get a better grip. It was very easy for her to take off her top, but being face to face with Harvey himself, it was as if she had lost control over her own body. Her fingers wrapped themselves around the fabric as she twisted bashfully, not wanting him to see her. Seeing her like this, Harvey couldn't help himself anymore. "Raise your hands," he said coldly. She followed his lead, and her hands reached into her top. He could feel her trembling with his touch, but he didn't hold back. His fingers grazed across her skin, and he pulled her towards him. Before she could say anything, he swiftly took off her clothes and underwear and threw them to the side. The light reflected on her lush skin, and he couldn't help but smile with appreciation. Evelyn didn't waste any time as she covered her chest. Her cheeks flushed dark red. She didn't dare open her eyes. It was hot here, but she couldn't help but feel a little cold. Was it because of her shame? "You really are something else," he said. There was something about his words that made it sound like he was helpless under her hold, but she couldn't tell if she was just imagining it. His arms hugged her waist, and she could feel his skin rubbing against hers. Before she knew what was happening, her back fell against the sofa. She stared up at him. His eyes were dark with lust. "Stop fooling around," he said softly, tucking a hair behind her ears. "From now on, you just have to cooperate and be obedient. Remember, you have to cooperate, or I'll be forced to teach you a lesson." He was threatening her. But why didn't she feel afraid? In fact, a part of her was even excited. Evelyn's full lips were pressed against his thin lips. They were cool, but they were hot. Harvey's hand caressed her fair skin. Her skin was smooth as silk. Harvey couldn't help but think again. She lived such a rough life. How did she have such good skin? Could it be that she was born beautiful? Evelyn wasn't born beautiful. As he thought about it, his body became even more heated. His thoughts could not control his body anymore. He felt something that couldn't be controlled, burning in his body. He began to become restless. He became anxious. He became hungry. Evelyn was a little resistant. She still remembered the pain she felt the first time. Harvey felt that she was afraid. He pursed his lips and whispered into her ear, "Are you scared?" She stubbornly turned her face away. Her ears were red as she muttered, "This has nothing to do with you." "It won't hurt this time. It will be more comfortable," Harvey said, biting her earlobe. Evelyn trembled, and she tried dodging, but he held her chin. He kissed her again, and this kiss was even more intense. Evelyn became hazy. When it was over, her hands were twitching, and she couldn't move at all. Seeing this, Harvey wrapped the suit around her body. Evelyn frowned in resistance. Harvey held her down and said, "Don't move. If you don't rest, you won't be able to even walk." Monster. Evelyn cursed at him in a hoarse voice. Harvey didn't get angry. Instead, he sat beside her and played with her hair. He smiled and said, "I have shown mercy to your weak body. Otherwise, you would have fainted by now." Evelyn blushed and scolded him in her heart. Pervert. Monster. Evelyn laid on the sofa and rested for a while. She felt some strength in her body and struggled to get up and put on her clothes. Then she threw Harvey's expensive jacket to him. Harvey was already neatly dressed. He looked like nothing ever happened. Evelyn struggled to get up and looked at him. "You have to keep your word. You'll solve the problem that needs to be solved." Harvey raised his eyebrows. "Of course. I will keep my word." Evelyn nodded and didn't say anything else to him. She turned around and left. Harvey frowned slightly when he saw her leave. She left, just like that? Her attitude towards the man she slept with twice was too cold. In this kind of relationship, he should be the distant one. Harvey almost subconsciously stood up as well. His steps were big, and he caught up with Evelyn pretty soon. She felt that there was someone behind her. She looked sideways and saw him there. She frowned at him. "Why are you following me?" "You think really highly of yourself. I just happened to want to leave." Evelyn frowned and didn't say anything. She opened the elevator door and walked in, and Harvey followed. When the elevator went down, Evelyn felt her legs go weak and almost fell down. Harvey was at the side and caught her by the waist and supported her. Evelyn stabilized her body and struggled to move his hand. He said in a deep voice, "I helped you, but you didn't even thank me. You were quite rude." She curled her lips. "You have caused me a lot of trouble. Why should I thank you for the little help you gave me?" Harvey looked at her and smiled. "What are you talking about? About your first night? Or about sending you to the police station? Or about making you lose your job?" Evelyn was so angry she gritted her teeth. "You're a real bastard." "Which one?" "All of them." The elevator arrived. Evelyn didn't want to argue anymore. She just wanted to go home and take a bath and wash off the smell left by this man. She walked out first and saw the lobby manager from afar. She had a look of embarrassment on her face. It was probably because Cindy asked her to work here. She couldn't stay here and work for them. Evelyn thought in her heart she might as well go over and tell him. She approached the manager, smiled, and said gently, "Sorry for the trouble. I know Cindy told you that she wants me to work here, but I can't do that. This is for my own reasons. Please don't take it personally." Evelyn was about to leave without waiting for the manager's reply. Harvey, who was behind her, suddenly followed her and said, "Do you want to work here?" Evelyn didn't want to talk to him. She wanted to walk away, but he grabbed her by the arm. Harvey looked at the manager. He said lightly, "She's fine. You will hire her." The manager choked. "Mr. Cage, what do you mean?" What did he want him to do? Did he want Evelyn to make things difficult for him? Harvey knew that the manager was making wild guesses. He pursed his lips and said, "What I said is literally what I meant. She just lost her job. You will hire her." Evelyn was stunned. She didn't know what game he was playing. She instinctively shook her head and refuted. "No, I don't want to work here." Harvey looked at her impatiently. "Do you really want to mess with me?" She frowned and said, "Who knows what games you will play?" Harvey raised his eyebrows and whispered into her ear, "I'm not playing games. If you work well, I'll compensate you with a job. Or else I'll really cause you more problems. For example, I'll make sure you can't work ever again." Evelyn widened her eyes and thought that Harvey was insane. What was he doing? But this crazy man just threw away his words. When the manager heard this, he didn't dare say no. He immediately told Evelyn that she could start work right away. He was afraid that she wouldn't do it, so he added on the way, "The salary here is very good. You can work here." Evelyn frowned and couldn't say anything. Forget it. Evelyn thought in her heart, the salary here is indeed very high. She can't always be a useless older sister. At least she can work properly first. If possible, she could earn money to pay Mark's tuition. This way, Mark could use his scholarship on more classes. Harvey was satisfied with her compromise. He even praised her. "Good girl." Evelyn looked at the hand that was grabbing her arm. She said, "Mr. Cage, can you let me go? I'm going home." Harvey raised his eyebrows and let go of her hand. Evelyn turned around and hurriedly walked out. He watched her back hurry away and wondered, why was she in such a hurry to leave? She was so petite, and her steps were so small. He caught up with her in a few steps. Rabbits think that they can escape the wolf's pursuit. They don't know that the perfect and deliberate stillness in the wolf's play and trap. Rabbits that fall into the wolf's trap can't escape. Can they?